UFC matchmaker John Perretti has been one of the most important behind-the-scene figures since the sport first became known to the public at large in the early 1990s. Perretti has worked for some of the top promotions in mixed martial art history and personally put together some of the most exciting fights ever. In addition to his work as an announcer, Perretti has also been known for his outspoken and insightful analysis as he joins Carson's Pit today to discuss his past and current projects, as well as the latest happenings from around the world of mixed martial arts. Help me welcome to the show, Mr. John Perretti. John, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Good. We spoke briefly at the YAMA event. What have you been up to since then?
I've been working on my own sport for 4.5 years, actively pursuing investors.
Now, can you give us any update on the promotion of YAMA? I mean, we've heard that they've suspended operations, and do you think we'll ever see a second event from them?
I have no basis for judgment on that.
Okay. What did you think of the first event, the first YAMA event? What areas do you think they succeeded in and failed in?
Well, that's a tough one. First of all, Bob Carson is a friend of mine, and I'm very respectful of his decisions. I love the idea of the ring. I thought it worked really well. I loved the way it looked. I wasn't so fond of the name, but it was derived from the Russian, pit, so to speak. I like that a lot. I absolutely did not appreciate the ring announcer. I don't like anyone belittling an athlete, both either verbally or physically, especially at the moment of their performance. I had a real problem with that. Matchmaking was suspect. The athletes were in, I'm trying to be benevolent here, they were in a physical condition that was very unlike how they had been seen in the past. I think that a lot of things worked really nicely. Again, the surface worked really nicely. And some of the fights were competitive. I would like to see it happen again, but I haven't heard from Bob, so I don't really know what's going to happen.
Bob Meyerowitz has claimed that Lorenzo Fertitta prevented the said UFC from being sanctioned, but then later bought the company and helped it become regulated. Is that true in your opinion?
You broke up.
Bob Meyerowitz has claimed that Lorenzo Fertitta prevented the said UFC from being sanctioned, but then later bought the company and helped it become regulated in Nevada. Do you think that's true in your opinion?
Yes.
Do you think it's odd that Lorenzo...
Oh, wait. But let me preface that by saying that Bob Meyerowitz, my friend Bob Meyerowitz, did the same thing to me when I owned Extreme Fighting.
How so?
Well, because Extreme Fighting was blackballed by the UFC, and Extreme Fighting became the political, beat-up boy, so that Ultimate Fighting could continue. When Extreme Fighting went out of business because of Ultimate Fighting, I was hired by the Ultimate immediately to do all the matchmaking for their show.
Now, we've reported, and it's been widely reported, that Lorenzo Fertitta, at the time, claimed he didn't, when the UFC was up for sanctioning in Nevada, claimed that he had no knowledge of mixed martial arts or no knowledge of the UFC. Then 18 months later, he buys it for $2 million. Doesn't that strike you as kind of odd?
That's a Dana White question, isn't it?
Well, I mean,
you're asking me whether that's the truth or not, right?
No, I'm asking you, don't you think it's odd, the reports that Lorenzo Fertitta, who at the time when Nevada was the Nevada State Athletic Commission was to cast judgment as to whether or not the mixed martial arts and the UFC would be sanctioned in Nevada, at the time he claimed that he had no knowledge of MMA and no knowledge of the UFC, and then 18 months later he goes and buys
from Bob Meyerowitz. Doesn't that... Well, okay, let's do a chronology check here. Just this, I'm a stickler for accuracy, especially in terms of history, because history is always rewritten and certain individuals are airbrushed out. As Dr. Peter McGuire once said, Mr. Perretti, you've been airbrushed out of the history. But let's look at this. I think I met Fertitta at UFC Japan. I think it was the first one. So if you look up that date, you should be able to figure out whether there's truth to that statement. Correct?
Well, I don't know.
Well, if someone is at a UFC event and it predates the suggestion...
Oh, okay. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
That would obviously dictate the truth to the story, would it not?
Yes, absolutely. I understand. Yep.
So then I have no comment other than the chronology.
Okay. Battlecade's Extreme Fighting. For those of you who don't know, Battlecade was an MMA promotion that was hugely ahead of its time. They had the highest level fights and some of the future greats of the sport at the time. Looking back at Battlecade, what are your feelings on the events you put on?
Oh my God, I'm so proud I'm so proud of my participation in this sport. We worked on a shoestring budget, and I started weight classes. Dr. Aswanik and we designed the gloves. We did the rounds. We invented the sport. I'm very proud of it. I think, considering what we had to work with, and all the adversarial political climate and going to prison for it and so on and so forth, I'm really proud of it. And it was way ahead of its time. My son watched it for the first time and he was like, wow, this is so cool. Again, it was a primitive time, and it was a very difficult time in terms of people trying to close us down, including the UFC.
Yeah, that's no surprise there. You had guys like Eric Paulson and Matt Hume put on classic.
A classic fight that was.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that fight actually got stopped because of a strange vertical cut on a forehead, which is very rare. A vertical cut, is something that, doesn't usually occur in that area.
As a matchmaker, what do you think of Dream continuing Pride's legacy and trying to get Sakuraba beaten to death by matching up with explosive strikers?
I think it's disgusting what they've done to Sakuraba.
Do you think he should keep fighting, or is it time for him to hang it up?
I think it's disgusting what they have done to Sakuraba and how they've used him and given him one little apartment, and not paid him salaries. I think it's disgusting. I will say it again, how he has been used.
What do you think about his skill, though? Do you think he can compete at the top level?
I think Sakuraba was the top level. I think Sakuraba as a middleweight was genius, and he was refreshing, and he was a workaholic, and Sakuraba had a heart as big as a fucking lion.
What do you think of Brock Lesnar's fights with Frank Mir and Heath Herring?
Heath Herring, I think I gave him his first fight. I don't like his work ethic.
Do you think Lesnar has the potential to be a future star in the sport?
Don't know.
What is your favorite MMA fight of all time?
Wow. I tell you, though, just to segue, I'll tell you one of the most anticipated fights in my life. I was so fucking happy I made the match. I was so fucking excited. I was in tears just waiting for this fight. It was Miletich versus Mikey Burnett. And that turned out to be the biggest diaper-holding sleeper of all times. So, in retrospect, I always think, my God, I would have liked to see that fight really happen, but it never happened. Okay, let's see. Oh, God, there's so many great fights. I'm a puncher kicker who became a grappler. Okay, so remember that. So you have to, I like to see, technical things occur. Some amazing fights, Conan versus, see. I'm losing my memory. Against my kickboxer from up in Seattle. I'm sorry, I knew him for 30 years. I can't remember his name.
Maurice Smith?
Maurice. That's a wonderful thing because Maurice, is on the ropes, and Conan thinks he's a boxer all of a sudden, and he's badly coached, and then Maurice covers up and starts cleaning up on him and throwing little body kicks, and then finally has this great knockout at the end. That was a magnificent fight. Pete Williams knocking out Coleman with a right round kick to the head. The War of Zenobia Sperry. There's just amazing. I would like to make a list, I'm sure people, don't even remember half the fights that I'm talking about.
By the way, Phyllis Lee wanted me to say hello to you.
What a wonderful woman.
Yes, we had her on the show a while back for a great interview. She really is, and she's a big fan of the show. Listen, I want to thank you for taking the time to come on the show. Is there anything you want to say before we wrap it up?
No, I'm just I'm excited that a sport that I worked so hard on worked out so well for the people involved, and I am just thrilled that that I was there, and did my part. I hope that my new sport will be received, and that I'll get some backing to make mixed martial arts, look like a sandbox game.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Mr. Perretti. Take care.
Quite welcome.